We reject our crazies. It's time for you guys to reject him.
Okay.
Give me a crazy person. I'll reject him.
Donald Trump.
See, that's your problem. He's not crazy. That's your problem. Everything in the restaurant to like the restaurant. There are things, I go to a restaurant, I don't eat any seafood, but I like that restaurant because it's got steak. There are things that Trump will do that I will disagree with, but the entire package is as close as you're gonna get to what Americans want. Trump is redefining basically what a human being can do in 24 hours. First, if your name has the word sun in it, there's no excuse for not knowing how an eclipse works. But it's no surprise that Joy is the one who understands science. She's been on the science diet for years.
In a world dominated by woke liberalism, one man stands his ground, unwavering in his beliefs, Greg Gutfeld. Armed with sharp wit and a razor-sharp tongue, he took on Jessica Tarlov and the hosts of The View in a fiery live TV showdown. From intense debates to jaw-dropping exchanges, this unforgettable clash is one for the history books. But before we dive in, let's talk about Jessica Tarlov. During a discussion with the 5 co-hosts, she was asked about her favorite executive order. Instead of answering directly, she masterfully redirected the conversation, shifting the focus onto herself. Watch how she skillfully avoids the question.
What is your favorite, if you had to pick one, executive order?
My favorite as a Democrat or my favorite as an American?
I don't see why you should differentiate.
Well, because there's some partisanship going on in all of this. And
so
there are
you
points
admit
maybe
that some partisanship is un-American?
I think to some degree, of course. I think that there is some consensus to be had in this. And, you know, like the back to work policy, that will penalize some people that I think have legitimate reason to need to work from home, and hopefully they'll be able to make their case, whether that's they, you know, taking care of a loved one, they maybe have moved during the pandemic and are still doing their job effectively. But I think it's a good thing that people are in their office.
Did she really choose this from all of Trump's executive orders? Yes, you heard that right. That was her pick. In my opinion, she'd be better suited for MSNBC rather than sitting here. But that's not even the craziest part. She went on to claim that Trump went too far with the DEI program and refused to address it any further.
I think some of the DEI programs went too far, and everyone has accepted that in the public and the private sector, right? You have a huge surge of roles in companies, large and small, after the murder of George Floyd, and a lot of them have just quietly gotten rid of them even before it was clear that Donald Trump was going to win again. So I think that we can talk about things like that. And you can even talk about the EV mandate. All of the automakers who share the same aspirations and goals as former President Biden have said we're not going to make our targets. So obviously we need to reassess that to some degree. But when the judge says, you know, this is what the people voted for, some of it they absolutely did not. And Donald Trump promised that he would bring your costs down right away. And he revoked Biden's policy to lower prescription drug prices or to make it so Medicare can't negotiate itself for prescription drug prices. That's not cool.
Hearing all this, it's easy to see where she truly stands. Bringing Biden into the conversation feels out of place, yet when discussing Trump's executive orders and his promises for America, she quickly twisted the narrative back to herself, challenging Gutfeld's stance. And when asked to provide a detailed list of her ideas, she simply deflected, telling others to refer to the list instead of giving a real answer.
As former President Biden have said, we're not going to make our targets. So obviously we need to reassess that to some degree. But when the judge says, you know, this is what the people voted for, some of it they absolutely did not. And Donald Trump promised that he would bring your costs down right away. And he revoked Biden's policy to lower prescription drug prices or to make it so Medicare can't negotiate itself for prescription drug prices. That's not cool.
Where is that? Where was that?
It's look in the list.
Well, show me.
Well, what do you mean?
There's a lot more to that issue. But
Yeah.
Okay. Did the American people on November 5th vote for 1,660 Afghans who are being resettled here, have gone through the government process, people who helped us during the war in Afghanistan, which is translators risking their lives, people who are on target lists for the Taliban, they had their flights canceled.
The answer is yes, they did vote
No, they
for it.
didn't.
Yes, they did.
If you sat there...
Yes, they did.
Pointed comments spark a fiery debate, but Gutfeld didn't back down. With his trademark sarcasm and sharp wit, he systematically dismantled Tarlov's arguments, countering each point with precision and humor.
Trump did not hide any of this from
That's not
anyone.
true.
And that's the
you,
difference.
You guys sat here and you argued that the Afghanistan withdrawal was one of the worst atrocities in foreign policy, that we left people behind, not only American service members and Americans who are still living, the American service members who passed away tragically and the ones who are still living, but the people that helped us for years during that war. And now you say, oh, it's fine that their flights are just canceled?
No, I didn't say it's fine. I'm saying that Americans voted for it. That's the difference. I don't have to say it's fine. I'm just telling you the reality.
Her relentless arguing just to prove a point didn't work this time. But what Gutfeld did next was shocking. He completely dismantled her perspective with a simple yet powerful concept, leaving her argument in shambles. You won't believe his response.
Citizenship meant.
Well, I think when Donald Trump was talking about it and disparaging people over here, he was talking about undocumented people who come and drop their anchor babies. He wasn't talking about people who are here on student visas, people who are here on H-1B visas.
You're always going to choose this weird exception.
No,
The fact is the
it's
system
not
is
weird.
being gamed. Americans voted for Donald Trump because they saw these systems, these institutions being gamed. The asylum issue, the birthright citizen issue, Title IX issues. Every single part of society was being gamed by the left. And finally, Americans got pushed too far. Point is, you don't have to like everything in the restaurant to like the restaurant. There are things, I go to a restaurant, I don't eat any seafood, but I like that restaurant because it's got steak. There are things that Trump will do that I will disagree with, but the entire package is as close as you're gonna get to what Americans want. Trump is redefining basically what a human being can do in 24 hours.
Exactly. Anyone outside the leftist woke crowd can see that this is just basic human reasoning. Sadly, common sense seems to be disappearing, which is why we end up in these situations. Anyone with a sense of humor can recognize that Greg's points are not only straightforward but also crystal clear, cutting through the noise with undeniable logic.
He did more in a day than Biden did in his damn career, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting. He had 3 balls last night. That's 3 more than Adam Kinzinger. The guy hasn't slept in 2 days. I mean, the thing is, it's amazing. It's possible. It is possible Donald Trump could complete his presidency in 3 months.
Right.
And then he could just say, you know what? There he goes, you know what? JD, you take it from here. I think I did everything I could do. It's incredible. And by the way, you brought up, and you said it was a good thing, you know, the fact that like these people have to go back to work, but then you mentioned all these challenges they had. Well, welcome to America. Every single one of us has a challenge, but yet we come to work. I'm not going to pay for their porn addiction. If they want to sit home in front of Pornhub and go, I have chronic fatigue syndrome, you know what? Everybody in America could stay home because they have a sick loved one or a baby, but they aren't. They're coming to work. They should go. I'm glad that he got rid of the appointees. I need work around the house. I pay well.
This is what happens when you start a small fire and let it burn out of control. We'll circle back to this later, but let's not forget when Tim Walz signed a law allowing tampons in boys' bathrooms, the kind of policy Jessica seems to wish the Trump administration had embraced.
The point of having menstrual products available in a boys' bathroom is it's for 4th to 12th graders, I think, that if there is someone who identifies, if there is a biological female who identifies as male and uses that, your laughing will be the undoing.
You're encouraging empathy, which we all admire, go into an irrational world.
You don't admire it. I need to say something about the National Guard.
The boys' bathroom that's menstruating, Jessica.
Yes, this is exactly the kind of policy Jessica wants to see in action. And here's Greg's response to this madness, his not backing down. Meanwhile, the liberal media is scrambling to discredit every move Trump has made. If Obama or Kamala had introduced such policies, they'd likely be treated as a joke, not taken seriously.
I gotta bring up the Nazi hoax thing, because we all know this is BS, and yet the media is redefining losing every single day. Day one, they say Elon Musk made a Nazi salute,
right?
And I'm beginning to think, they know they're lying. So why are they doing this? Because they realize they cannot rebuild their credibility. They're like a fat guy on death row. What's the point in dieting? You're already dead.
Greg isn't someone who blindly applauds Trump. He's spent decades fighting against nonsense and media bias. Yet, many overlook this side of him. As he put it, if you're losing your sense of gender, accept it and move forward. To all the liberals watching, or if you have liberal friends, don't forget to like and share this video. Greg has an important message that needs to be heard.
Pretend that I'm not talking to Jessica, but I'm talking to the whole Democratic Party. So liberals, in their very best sense, are the party of empathy and compassion. Their problem is they extend that benefit to people who prey upon innocent citizens. That is their problem. They don't know the boundaries to their compassion or their empathy, and that's why they need conservatives to say, hey, knock it off, pull back. But why do liberals have to accept certain positions that are that bad? Like, why do they have to make excuses for rioters and looters? That is not necessarily a liberal position. They don't have to do it. So if you think of other liberal positions, arguing for surgical transitions for children, banning school choice, funding foreign wars, bailing out Phelan's. What if these aren't liberal positions? They're just awful ones. Then you could reject them. You don't have to sit here and defend tampons for boys. You could just say, you know what, there's nothing liberal about that, right? Only nut jobs want kids to have nut jobs. It's not about being liberal or conservative. But the problem is the Democrats have allowed radicals to define what is liberal. So tampons for boys, suddenly, Jessica, you have to defend it. You shouldn't have to. You know, liberals were always against conversion therapy. That was a psychological attempt at curing homosexuality. Now they're defending invasive surgical solutions to do the same thing. How did that become liberal and the other one not? So it's a plea that, like, you don't have to defend this crap. You don't have to defend tampons for boys. You should laugh at it and go, this is bullshit. I don't believe any of it. And then all of a sudden you find that the Democrats and the Republicans are in the same room again. We reject our crazies. It's time for you guys to reject them.
The fact that this was discussed 5 months ago speaks volumes about who Greg truly is and what he stands for. Listening to the nonsense pushed by Democrats is almost laughable. Honestly, I feel sorry for the younger generation. This is the kind of garbage they have to endure. If you've noticed, college students today are facing immense challenges because schools aren't what they used to be. Meanwhile, the liberal media works overtime to hide the absurd policies Democrats have forced onto our children. But when Jessica was asked to call out a crazy person, you won't believe who she named.
Okay.
Give me a crazy person. I'll reject him.
Donald Trump.
See, that's your problem. He's not crazy. That's your problem.
That is exactly the problem.
There's nothing that he believes in that comes close to tampons for boys or for pushing trans surgeries on children because they're suffering from a psychological delusion. There's nothing like that in the conservative movement. But you Democrats have embraced these things because they're so scared of being called lack of compassion.
I feel sorry for the leftists who lost their minds because Greg was simply speaking pure facts. Unsurprisingly, his ideas didn't sit well with many of them. The very next day, The View went off to Gutfeld, with the hosts labeling his comments as toxic and misogynistic. But their criticism only fueled the fire. Greg wasted no time addressing it head-on during his next show, using the opportunity to expose their ignorance to millions of viewers.
All right. I mean, I have to say, Karen Dupiche, our one of our wonderful makeup artists, when the earthquake was happening, she put her coat on and she was like, Jesus is coming.
I'm out.
I'm out. I'm leaving. We've got a solar eclipse. We've got the earthquake. Ran down the hallway.
The rapture is here.
The rapture's here. And then also I learned that the cicadas are coming. Cicadas.
Although I love
for the first time in
Cicadas,
like
cicada.
no, 100 years, but for the first time in many, many years.
No, every 17 years this happens.
Well, that's not what I read, but maybe, you know better. All those things together would maybe lead one to believe that, either climate change exists or something is returning.
Earthquakes are not at the mercy of climate change. It's underground. It happens, and the eclipse, they've known about the eclipse coming because eclipses happen, and they actually can say when these things are going to happen.
Amazing. That's not what I read. The true sign of the apocalypse is someone that dumb has a law degree. Worse, if your name has the word sun in it, there's no excuse for not knowing how an eclipse works. But it's no surprise that Joy is the one who understands science. She's been on the science diet for years. They're turning on me. So that makes Sonny Hodgson, who thinks climate change caused the solar eclipse, the dumbest of them all. Because everyone knows the moon caused the eclipse, which is controlled by The View's gravitational pull.
Claiming to know everything while lacking even a 6th grader's understanding is truly unbelievable. But Greg didn't just confront them directly. He also mocked them in other ways, exposing their ignorance with his signature wit.
CC is rumored to be looking to add a conservative host to The View. Liz Cheney is obviously the front runner because she's both stupid and fat. That's why they're called leftovers.
Returning to Jessica, we have a video where she sounds just like the View hosts, speaking without truly understanding the issue she raised. But this time, it wasn't just Greg who confronted her. All of the 5 co-hosts joined in.
COVID and injecting bleach into.
Oh, come on.
That's a hoax.
We're talking
No one
about
said
it.
injecting bleach.
He
Please look it
never
up.
said
Please look it
that.
up.
A
Okay,
Lysol?
we'll do it in real
Do I have
time.
the wrong product?
No,
talking
but
about
it never
fundamental-
happened.
It never happened.
You are
Did he say it
literally
wasn't
living in a
airborne?
delusion right now.
Oh.
That never was said. Do the research.
Okay.
No one ever said injecting bleach. Look it up. It's been debunked. That's just like the fine
But
people
that's
hoax.
not even, that's a
I hate having
pivot.
to fix these
That
things
is
in
a
real
pivot
time.
from the
Before we close out, let's take a look at how Gutfeld welcomed Trump before he even became president. And before you leave, don't forget to like, subscribe.
Loves Diet Coke, but hates the woke. Choosing this insanity over Sean Hannity. Let's crank it up to 11 for President 45 and 47. The man who